time is it over there?
It's 3 minutes past 10.
In the morning?
No, at night.
Oh, at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I forgot. Backwards, forwards, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys got quite acquainted, I noticed in your guys' chat going back and forth.
We just started talking, and it was like, he was like, what are y'all doing? And I was like, well, currently I'm making bread, and my hands are knee deep in dough.
Homemade bread is the best.
I was going through emails, and it pops up the chat on the side. It comes across the sidebar. And it was ding, 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 ding. I'm like, all right, I got to meet you guys for a minute. So, all right. Well, since you guys were already talking, let's get right into it.
Well, I just wanted to say that I had listened to your music because I'm trying to catch up on all these. We've got like 12 people that we're interviewing in the next week or so.
Yeah.
So trying to gather everybody's music and trying to figure out like, you know, what they sound like. For me, you sound exactly like what you said in your intro on Spotify.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, because I even wrote it down, and then when I read that after I had listened to the songs that were on there, and I was like, I was right. I was like, I know. I was like, that's funny though that I picked that up and didn't even know that that's like what you guys were actually, you know, going for or sounding like.
I don't think I've ever quite got over the 90s. I have tried to change genre, kind of, at some point, but it always comes back to this. I wrote a song recently. I was like, oh, that's breaking the mold. And then played it back, finally got it done. I was like, oh, that's probably the most 90s one I've ever wrote.
Which one was that?
So then, how long have you been making music?
Oh, so got my first guitar when I was like, I must have been about 16. Literally no musical background at all. I just needed a hobby, really. And then after school, I joined a band. We were together quite a good few years as well. In the end, we kind of split. We were a bit like, because we used to play covers, but I didn't really enjoy learning other songs as such. I've always enjoyed writing my own. So we did that for quite a bit. And then, I kind of took a break from it when the band split. I suppose other things just got in the way. Took it up again when I was about 26-ish. So that would have been about 2016. And then, obviously, the work commitments got in the way. And then with me leaving next year and hopefully getting a job I'll enjoy a bit more, I've got back into it. And if anything, it's gone more full swing now than it ever was. So, yeah, quite a while.
Right. So what's been your biggest influences so far in the music?
What, like band-wise?
Yeah, like what bands or solo artists have been your biggest influence?
Well, listen to my stuff. A lot of people probably think Nirvana, definitely. That's my favorite band.
The first thing that popped in my head when
mine as well.
When I started listening to it, I was like, that's wait, what? No. And I kind of like, I was like, oh my God. I was like, that has got to be his spirit animal or something.
Funny enough, my fiance said to me earlier, we were listening to some music in the car, and I put one of mine on, just swapped it on, something I'm working on at the moment, and it hasn't got any vocals on it yet. And after about a minute, she turned it off and she goes, oh, that's the most boring Nirvana song I've heard. I was like, I've made it. She thinks it's a Nirvana song.
Hey, your girlfriend and your wife are going to be the biggest critics, but they will be the most honest as to what somebody would want to hear or not hear.
Absolutely. That one I wrote called Flock, that was kind of to her. She said, oh, your stuff sounds so 90s. And she's slightly younger than me. I grew up with the whole grunge thing. She grew up all like Blink-182 and all that. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to write an early 2000s pop song. And that's kind of where that one came from.
Okay.
Yeah, but But I've got loads of influences, and a lot of them don't match either. Like, I love Jimi Hendrix. I absolutely adore the Sex Pistols. When I was a teenager, I became a
See,
bit
I
of a
grew
fan
up
of it.
listening to all of those. Like that was my
Mm.
like punk bands were the big thing for me when I was growing up. So like we wore like, the leggings, the boots,
Hmm.
and like there was a lot of people that were like, in the 80s, like metal and stuff like that. But I was still listening to like 70s punk, dressing up like
Yeah.
70s punk, and people were like, "You are so different from everybody that lives here." Yeah, I don't listen to y'all stuff because I don't get it. But
That's what I was like. High school parties used to be interesting because they'd all be walking around, like, My Chemical Romance and all the emo stuff and things
yes,
like that. And then I'd rock up full Ramones t-shirt on, spiky hair and all that. I'm surprised I've still got hair, to be honest, the amount of hairspray that used to go in
I have pictures that I will not show anybody because of
it.
that.
Yeah, it's I've got some quite weird influences though, like that don't really mix. I mean, a lot of people are surprised. I'm a really hardcore Elvis fan. Like, absolutely love Elvis. If I could see any band, like solo artists that were still around, it'd 100% be Elvis Presley.
Okay, so I have a story about Elvis.
Yeah,
Um, my birthday is August 16th.
that's when he died, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. Guess what I hear
Oh,
about every August 16th since the day he's died?
Elvis.
Elvis died on your birthday, did you know?
You want
And
to hear something
and I
funny
told them,
along with that?
I tell them, I
Yeah.
was like, would you like to join them?
That's
Every
okay.
birthday.
That's okay because my birthday is January 8th. Since we're talking about Elvis, I share the
That's
same. That was his birthday.
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
share the same. Yeah, I share the birthday.
And I share the death date. Isn't that funny?
that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Well, then
So,
go ahead. Go ahead, Kirsten.
Oh, sorry. Do you have any weaknesses that you are actively working on to improve your music style?
yeah, so the problem is at the moment, I used to, when we was in a band, it was all live, so I don't get the opportunity to play live anymore, and that's where most of the followers came from. So it's become a bit of a learning curve this year, like how to get out there. When I do hopefully get out of this job, I'm going to I'm going to try to start a band and then maybe do live again. At the moment, probably my biggest weakness is focusing too much on the music. Like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and if it doesn't sound right, I'll literally listen to the same song 1,000 times over and over. The other day, I heard one of my recordings. There was the slightest little, I don't know, it was like a click, a little feedback. I don't know what it was, and I must have spent about 2 hours trying to get this millisecond down just to get rid of it, and then swap something into it to hide it.
But
And it's
like records though, on a whole, like when they used to make records, that used to be like the part that people enjoyed listening to records, because when you do stuff, digitally, all of that stuff's gone. So like if there's people talking in the background or somebody doing something or opening a door, it always made for that record to have something, just a touch different in that musical note or in that song.
It's weird that you say that as well, because funny things have happened. I'll put my hands up. I am not the best guitarist in the world, and some of the songs I've done where the guitar solos, I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? It needs a solo. I need to find something that's going to fit it. And I've just played something randomly, when I'm adding the layers to the track, and it's gone to it. And I've gone, ooh, that sounds good. And if you asked me to repeat it, I'd be like, what did I actually play on that? So when it comes to the live stuff, I'm going to have to improvise a little bit, but there's been quite a few instances like that.
But that's what makes it different though.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
and unique, and that's what makes your, music different from somebody else that, in 10 years they may end up copying you, and you're like, oh, well, that's not how I played it, but that's still cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I do quite like listening to, especially on YouTube. That's a great place for it. They'll cover very unknown songs by certain artists, but they'll add their own unique twist on it. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That is. Half my YouTube playlists are just people doing covers.
Yeah, I love listening to people do covers, but putting their own style or twist on it. But on the other hand, there are people out there that do a cover that totally butcher it, and it makes it unrecognizable, and it just doesn't do anything for the song. So that's my thing is if you're gonna do a cover of something, at least do it justice.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. When we first started in a band, I wasn't originally the vocalist. I was the bass player, and we had a singer, and we tried to cover Back in Black, AC/DC, and I've got a video of it somewhere, and it's the cringiest thing. You can kind of see me on the
I
video.
want to see it.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd like to see. I'd like to see that.
It's cringe. I think we got booed off stage actually on that one.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Do you, what do you do when, your audience reacts negatively, or distracting during your performances?
I mean, it's been a while since I've done live performances, but I sort of just carry on and get on with it. We used to play this, I think it was called the Appleby. It's long gone now. I think they've turned it into a house, but the stage was virtually non-existent. It was the weirdest venue I've ever been to. It was great. But as I say, there was like no divide between sort of where the band was and everyone else. And you used to have people coming right next to you. And I just remember half of it not being able to sing because they were making me laugh and things like that, and trying to get back to where you were in the song. Like, what verse are we on? Yeah. But yeah, stuff like that. That was the weirdest venue, though. I went into the toilet and walked out and bumped into what I thought was a girl in like a wedding dress, because it was kind of like that gothic sort of venue. I'm like, oh, sorry, love, didn't mean to walk into you. Turns around and it's this guy with this massive, proper ZZ Top type beard. I was like, whoa. He's like, it's all right, mate. I was like, this place is awesome.
So when you did play out, did you have any kind of process or ritual that you would do to get rid of nerves? Because I have friends that are in bands, and they've told me a couple of like things that they do to kind of calm their nerves before they get up on stage or whatever.
Not really. I mean, I get really, really like sickness in my stomach and stage fright, that type of thing. Once I'm on, I'm fine, funnily enough. But before going up, it was like, oh God, it's actually happening. And the guitarist is like, you need to calm down and relax. And I feel my hands are getting sweaty. I'm not going to be able to play my bass. My hands are so sweaty. I've dropped the pick about 5 times. And then once you're up, it's fine. Although it's funny. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to ask you, going on what you were saying, because you said you started out saying that you picked up a guitar at like 16, and then you just mentioned you play bass. Are those the only 2 instruments you play, or do you play other instruments as well?
No, unfortunately, it's just guitar and bass at the moment. I did try. I bought my fiance a violin at the start of the year because she said she'd always wanted one. I think she's picked it up probably twice. I tried to have a go on it. Surprised we didn't get noise complaints. I have tried the drums a few times, but I haven't really got a lot of tempo. Let's just say that. When I do my recordings, I do everything else myself. I do the vocals, I do the bass, I do the guitar, but I have to pay a session drummer because there's no chance you'd be able to listen to it if I was drumming on it.
Okay.
So what's the situation?
Go ahead, Tristan.
What's the funniest situation? Either playing by yourself or playing in a band. What has been the funniest situation that you've ever run up on?
Well, there's been a few. I mean, we went to this venue. This is back in the day, and it looked like the roughest venue you've ever seen. Broken bottles all outside. I looked around and I was like, we're gonna get beat up when we go in there. This looks, I've seen some stuff, but even I was kind of like, this is scary. Went in, and I'm not exaggerating. It was like red carpets everywhere, gold records on the walls. I looked out the door, and it's like hell outside. You look inside, I'm like, what's going on? This is a weird place. I mean, at the Works barbecue in the summer, we were stood in line getting our one burger that we was allowed, and all of a sudden I heard, do you know when you just recognise something but it doesn't click straight away? And I'm stood in the line, and I was like, what's that song? That's kind of familiar. Blimey, that's quite loud. What's that? And they were playing my songs, and I was like, oh God. Yeah, it's a lot of people here, they don't really share the same genre as me, really. So it's all, yeah, they think I'm the nutty wannabe rock star.
We've actually heard that quite, because we've done you make our third interview in the last 2 days. We've actually heard that where a lot of people, where they do their music, they're like an outcast, and it's hard for them to actually play their music where they're located at. And it's not just, in the UK over there, because we had a guest, a band from Texas that from their little town, it was hard for them to find venues as well. Does that create a problem? Is that like really hard for you to find places to play because of that?
It's going to be certainly a big problem when I tried to form a proper band, because back in the day, you had to put ads out, like, oh, I need a guitarist, I need this. And it was hard back then to find people roughly in the same area that, they'd be willing to travel to you, or you'd be able to travel to them. It was kind of luck of the draw. And especially now, I mean, I don't like to keep bringing it up, but COVID was the worst thing to happen to the, live music and pubs and venues and that type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was this bar I used to hang out at, and it was brilliant. Like, literally, some of the best bands I've genuinely ever heard used to play at this place. All original stuff, if they were given the opportunity to be on the radio, go mainstream and all that, they'd blow anything out of the water that's out nowadays. And now most of the venues are closed down. This place still exists, but it's under new management, and it's almost like a hipster bar, and it's kind of like, So, yeah, it's quite worrying, to be honest. I do think a lot of it's going to move kind of underground and online, which is a shame because it takes away the energy of the live performance. So that's kind of like what I like to capture, the live performance. I try to leave it as raw and as energetic as possible and not too polished.
Yeah.
But it's the way the world's going nowadays, unfortunately, all digital.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think in some respects it does, like here, like I told you, online, that like my middle child, he manages his friend's band. And like it's just now slowly picking up. We had 3 bars that played live music closed down during COVID. And it's just now like slowly starting to pick up, and they play like more metal-ish type music. So like they played at a art studio, which I was very surprised. They weren't allowed to come back there. And I told them, I was like, I think that's just kind of weird that they had you guys at an art studio, knowing that, there's paintings and art and stuff like that, but they did. And then there was a skate park just recently that they played at.
I think the weirdest one I've played at was at an agricultural college right outside. And
Really?
I don't know how we managed to get it. I don't know why we was even there. I don't think the students knew why we were there. We were just playing randomly outside, and after about an hour, I looked at them, I was like, what are we doing here? Because originally we were supposed to play in the classroom, one of the classrooms, and they were like, oh, no, we can't do that. You'll have to play in outdoors. I'm pretty certain they did let us play in a classroom eventually, but no one was actually inside. So we were like, oh, this is just a rehearsing session, I guess, in a college.
That's funny. That especially in ag school. Like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, okay, so I've lived in Wisconsin, and most of the people that like are farmers, if you go in their barns and stuff, they're not playing country music, they're playing metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like for me, that's kind of like where we all just kind of stood. Like you would hear not country music going down like the roads. You would hear a lot of metal or rock or, just that kind of genre that we had from like 70s and 80s.
Yeah. It's just sad how it's look for it now. I mean, in a way, it's kind of nice when you look for something and then you find it, and it's almost like a little treasure.
Yeah.
Like what do they call it? Sieving for gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like that for all the stuff, and yeah, because I've never been into hip hop or anything like that. I've tried. I did really try to get into it, and no offense to anyone who does like it, but I just can't get into it and stuff like that. And it's just all that seems to be around nowadays.
That's because a lot of the metal and punk and all those bands are underground because, like if you go and look at, and this is not any bias towards any like Academy Awards or music, award shows or anything like that, but a lot of them, it's based on votes. Well, if you can't get your music out there to let people see what you're listening to and like your genre just in metal or rock or anything to that effect, if you can't get your music out there, then nobody knows who you are, what you're doing, or what you sound like. And I think that if we had more people that had like, like a punk metal award show, there
Yeah,
would be
absolutely.
more of that, and a lot more people would come out and be like, hey, I really like this stuff. But they
I think a
don't
lot of
because they don't gear it towards that.
what I think a big part of the problem is nowadays is back in the day, and this isn't just towards music, it's everything. So films, video games, all sorts of media. No one's willing to take a chance anymore. If you look at some of them bands, for like the all-time greats, like Queen, prime example. If they hadn't taken a chance with them, what would we have had? And nowadays it's just, oh no, we'll just keep putting the same generic stuff out. It's safe, it sells, and it's just take a chance because a little experimentation, you might be surprised what people will do. Some of the best bands I've genuinely ever heard, as I said, they're underground. They're just local bands. There was this band I heard the other day on another radio show, and it absolutely blew my mind. I'm surprised they're not like a platinum record. It's that good, and the talent, it's oozing.
Yeah, we actually have a few on our radio station. And actually, don't sell yourself short because your music is quite good too. So don't sell yourself short. But yeah,
Cheers.
we have a few of the underground indie artists on our site as well. I'm really surprised that they haven't been called for some kind of record label because their music and their production is outstanding.
Yeah, it's just really sad. I just think people need a chance nowadays, and that's not even the hardest bit. I wasn't around back in the 70s or the 80s, so I can't really comment on what it was like. But
it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier.
It's all.
I've had friends that, like, every weekend, like, they would get jobs just like from 6:00 in the morning until 3:00 in the afternoon. And by 3:00 in the afternoon on Friday, they were on the road and they were playing venues all up and down the East Coast. Like there was at least 10 bands that they weren't hardly ever at home on the weekends because they were up and down the coast trying to play anywhere and everywhere they could get to.
This is the thing. It's like nowadays the hardest part isn't making the music. You'd think, oh, I've got to come up with a song. I've got to put lyrics to it. Does this go? Does this not go? Oh, will the audience like this? It's not even that anymore. It's trying to get exposure.
Yep.
Trying to get your name, your music heard out there. No one gives you a chance, and you just get swamped online. I've started getting really annoyed at it recently, the amount of scammers and spammers. I must get about 10 a day. Send your music link to this, and we'll promote you and all this. And I'm like, some guy messaged me the other day, and he was like, I really like your stuff. And I was like, oh, cool, cheers, and then it's almost like it's a surprise when someone genuinely shows interest now, because then I was like, oh, wait for it. And then I get, yes, if you'd like to add it to my playlist, it's $10 per song. And I'm like, and there it is.
Yep.
Yeah. See, that's something that Junior and I were talking about from the very beginning. We're never going to charge, because we already know that how much out-of-pocket expense you guys got to do to try to get exposure, put the music together. Like you said, you got to hire a drummer. Like, we know that there's already this out-of-pocket expense. So we're not going to charge you. If you want to send us your stuff, we're going to play it regardless. We'll get our money elsewhere from other advertisements and merchandise and all that stuff. We're not going to get it from you guys.
Well, this is the thing as well. A lot of artists I speak to, I've got some very close friends I actually met on Twitter, which I swore I'd never join, but it's literally been the best thing for getting music out there.
I joined 5 days ago.
Oh, did you? Literally,
yes,
I think it was May.
I said I was never going to get on Twitter, and then Chappy was like, hey, we need you to do PR, and I was like, oh, okay, that means I'm not on Twitter. Hit! I swear I was never going to get on there.
As I was saying, though, the amount, some of the friends I've made online, other artists, and we all agree, if there's like stations and promotions that are genuine and they're not just trying to fleece people, we'd happily support them. I already support a few on there. It's no dramas. What's a few pounds here and there. If you get enough people to do it, it's fine. But it's when it's people like, it comes down to that. What's more important, the artist or the executive? You know what I mean? It's just really frustrating. And no matter where you turn, it's just like someone's there with a handout, asking for a handout, and it's I've only got a normal job, guys. I'm not loaded.
Right.
Yeah.
So this kind of question you've already answered, but for the people that are going to be listening to this that don't know, what's your website? Like, plug yourself. Give your information where people can find your stuff.
So I'm pretty much on everything, really. The one thing I haven't really branched onto yet, which I'm holding off on, a bit like the Twitter thing, is TikTok. I don't think I'm quite ready for that. I just don't understand the whole TikTok memes Vine thing. But I'm on Spotify. I'm on YouTube. If you type in my name, I literally will come up. I kind of joke now, I'm famous now, because if you type my name into Google, it comes up Lewis Tivey, music artist. I'm like, I'm big time now.
Yeah.
But so YouTube, Spotify, I'm on SoundCloud, Reverb Nation, literally everything you can imagine. I found out the other day I was on Deezer. I don't even know what that is. I've not had any listens on it. I was like, I guess no one else knows what it is, but no offense if there's anyone who listens to Deezer out there.
Deezer, actually our podcast is on Deezer. It's actually really big for podcasts. They're trying to get into supporting the music. I didn't realize that we were on it until, I don't know, somebody tagged us all. You were in the tag too. Tagged us all, that we were on there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I think like everybody else that was tagged went in and looked and like, oh, okay.
It's when I've put like singles out, I've just put, send everywhere. And I haven't really checked where it's all gone. But the main ones are literally Spotify, Apple Music. They're the main ones I focus on. I need to push my YouTube a little bit more, because start of the year, May, I shot 2 music videos. And me being me, I wanted to go all out, and it wasn't the cheapest venture, let's just say. And I probably haven't pushed it enough, but I've got 2 music videos on there, so I'm hopefully going to do some next year when I've saved up a few pennies and can afford it again.
Yeah, it's not cheap. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's an experience, though.
Yeah. You got anything over there, Kirsten? I'm looking up something real quick.
No, I just like, what do you do for, I mean, I know that you have another job and you do this, but is there any other hobbies that you like have outside of doing music and your normal job?
Yeah, motorcycles. I absolutely love my motorcycle. Until it caught fire riding home from work last Friday, so that's going to be a little bit more out the park. Anything really. I'm a big history nerd, like proper history nerd. You name it, superheroes, comic books. We were talking before this, Star Wars,
Yeah,
anything
Star
like that,
Wars is a
really.
big thing.
Oh yes, I am a bit of a nerd. I'll put my hand up to that.
Well, no, you sound like my brother, because my brother, he's a huge history buff for like anything. He could tell you like what type of guns were used in certain wars, like what kind of tanks. I mean, he could just blow this stuff off, and I'm like, no, I can't. Like, now, if it
it,
talks about like interpersonal things in history, then yes, I can spout off things that happened like tragically with people. But as for the war that was going on around it, I don't, that's not so much an interest, but like the history of the people.
it ruins movies for you though as well. I was sat down one day and we were watching this. I think it was about Queen Elizabeth I,
Yes.
and it was just in a normal, like mansion, castle type thing, proper Elizabethan.
Yeah.
And in the background on the wall there was a painting of Charles I, who came, I think it was like several hundred years after him. And I was like, I can't watch this anymore. She's like, what are you on about? Just ignore it. I'm like, nah, turn this rubbish off.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I love finding little eggs like that
Yeah.
in movies. That's like the best, because then you're like, that didn't really happen. I know that history. Like that.
I'm superior to the producers.
Yeah, because like every one of my friends are like, what was it? I can't remember if it was, I don't remember which movie it was, but it was before like water bottles. And there was like a whole scene where there was like 2 water bottles sitting out in the movie, and people were like, did you see it?
Yeah, I'm always spotting things like that. I'm like, I'll just pretend I didn't see that and carry on, I guess.
Yeah, there was something in Star Wars, one of the Star Wars movies, that wasn't supposed to be there, and I cannot remember what it is.
I know there's a lot of the older ones, before they digitally altered it, they used paintings and things like that, and people, I think a stormtrooper hits his head on a door or something like that, and
Yes,
then type of movies, it's fun to spot them and like, oh yeah, I see it now.
Yes.
Yeah. I've seen stuff like that. I've seen like an old Western where they had like a digital watch on one of the guys and stuff. It's funny to see stuff like that.
I think I saw
So,
Pepsi or something in some movie that was like a Western or something like that. And it's like, really? They had Pepsi back then? I mean, I know it was, but it was like in a plastic bottle, not like in a glass bottle.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're going to wrap this up, but I do have a closing question that we've asked everybody, and we're going to ask you as well. In closing, if you had one message for your fans and followers, in general, what would it be?
Just thank you for the support. It's been quite overwhelming, to be honest. It's come quite quickly as well. It's from going from nothing, literally, because I only really picked it up again from January, and that's when I really started promoting. Probably not even January. I'd say like March, April time is when I started really putting it out there, and it's been overwhelming. I've made loads of new friends from it, artists and producers, and that type of thing. It's just been great. And if anyone says you can't do it, just ignore them. Just keep practicing and just keep doing it, because honestly, some of the best bands I've ever heard, they're just underground artists, and they deserve a lot more.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with you. Kirsten, if you don't have anything else, we're going to wrap it up.
I do not, and it's been a pleasure talking to you about everything that we've talked about before this.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
You're very welcome. You have a great evening.
Yeah, you too.
Bye now.
Bye.
See you soon.